call this meeting to order, Monterey One Water, on Thursday, December 19th. From the Administrative Office. Start out with roll call.
Rhonda? Here. Castroville?
Here.
County of Monterey? Delray Oaks?
Here.
Marina Coast?
Here.
Monterey?
Here.
Pacific Grove?
Here.
Salinas?
Here.
Sand City? Here. Seaside?
Here. Okay, now it's time for our pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now it's time for public comments. Anybody wishing to address the board on issues that are not on today's agenda, may do so now.
Chair Stefani and Directors of Monterey One Water, I'm Jerry Eland, a resident of Delray Oaks. I'd first like to thank you for the outstanding work you're doing on developing recycled water for our Monterey County residents. What's not to love? You're taking polluted water, purifying it, and leaving our groundwater alone. Again, thank you, but please watch your backs. The usual no-growth suspects will try and derail their efforts. Their motto being, no water, no growth. The two most critical agencies in this project, California American Water and the Monterey County Water Resources Agency, have informed you they need more time in order to make meaningful comments. Constructive input from these important stakeholders is absolutely essential to ensure the EIR is bulletproof and can withstand any potential lawsuits. There's no reason to prevent the agency from whom you need source water agreements and the agency from whom you need a water purchase agreement from having ample opportunity to fully review the EIR and raise any concerns they might have, if any, with your proposal. In fact, SEIR Guideline 15086, subparagraph A requires the lead agency to consult with and request comments on the draft EIR from responsible agencies. In this case, the responsible agency would be the Monterey County Water Resources Agency. Implicit within the SEIR guideline is a requirement to provide responsible agencies with sufficient time to provide adequate SEIR comments. Your board has done a great job up to this point, giving important stakeholders just a little more time to comment on the EIR is about getting it right the first time. If you cut the EIR comment period short, you put the credibility of the EIR at risk, invite lawsuits from the usual suspects, and risk increasing the cost of the project and delaying the project even longer by having to respond to the inevitable lawsuits. In fact, extending the comment period would go a long way toward showing due diligence and goodwill of this board if your EIR is challenged in court. Please do the right thing. The water you'll be producing is too valuable for Monterey County residents to lose. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before we take any more comments, the comments at this time are only those that are not on the agenda. Today's agenda has to do with the matter of the continuance or not continuance of the EIR. So those public comments will follow a staff report that you will receive. Allows you to get out of here quickly.
Okay, any other public comments? You all will be able to speak, put your name, tags in, and we'll call you up when we get time. We're going to go over a couple of staff reports first. Okay. All they want to get is an update, maybe on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item is to consider extending the comment period on the supplemental EIR for the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. As you remember, back on March 25th, 2019, this board approved allocation of some funds in association with the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District to move forward with environmental pre-design and permitting work. On November 7th, we did publish the draft EIR for public comment. In the staff report, it states, where it was published, and so on. There's a requirement for 45-day comment period. 45 days would have ended this Saturday, so we did extend it to 47 days for next Monday. To date, of the staff report, we've received 17 comments on the SEIR, the draft SEIR. On the 6th of December, Monterey County Water Resources Agency submitted a letter requesting an extension of the comment period. In their letter, which is attached to the board packet, they requested through January 31st. Since that period of time, we've received another, I believe, 3 letters supporting an extension of the comment period, and others saying, no, we should keep it the same. You also have before you letters that were received between when the board packet went out and today. In consultation with our legal counsel on this, in addition, Rob Wellington, as well as our CEQA counsel, there was no legal or CEQA requirement to extend. So it purely is a policy decision of this board of directors to extend the period for some period of time. In the staff report, it identifies, there's some options we have. One is keep it the same, so 5 o'clock on Monday, December 23rd. Another option is to do as the Water Resources Agency has requested, which is through January 31st, 2020, or the board can certainly choose to extend to another time frame. The example used in the staff report is hypothetically January 13th. Probably the benefit to some intermediate date is depending when you would like to see the SEIR come before this board for certification. Our feeling is if we go until January 31st as requested, based on the volume of comments we anticipate receiving and the work to be done to get this done, we wouldn't be bringing this back till probably April board meeting. If we can do it, if the extension is through, say, mid-January sometime, the 6 weeks plus or minus to get things going before going to committee and then to the board meeting, we'd be able to hit the March board meeting. Regardless, an extension will not allow us to hit the February board meeting. Is there any questions up to this point on the staff report? Okay.
So, Paul, if the board were to extend the supplemental draft DIR, would there be any impacts?
So besides timing, just when the SEIR would come to this board for certification, the only other impact is there would be some costs, absolutely. Because we need to renotice, and there's some staff time involved, etc. Those are, and I might defer to Allison, in the plus or minus $5,000 to $10,000 range. Okay, so $5,000 or less. So they're not, I mean, they're very real, but they're not as substantive as they could have been. So the impacts of the extension, of a potential extension, wouldn't be that big. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks, Chair. A couple just questions, I guess, so for clarification. If we choose not to extend the comment period, that would essentially require us to do nothing today? Is that correct? There's no motion needed or anything like that to essentially just go with the program?
You wouldn't, if there was no other action, you wouldn't need a motion to not extend the deadline. That's correct.
That's just for clarification. And then the second one, I'm having a little bit of, I'm not quite following this. The following are several options that the board could choose. And the first option, number 1, says includes an A or B. So basically, do not extend the public review period and thus require that all comments on the draft SEIR be submitted by December 23rd at 5 p.m., consistent with the currently published public review period. With this option, Monterey One Water could either A, continue to accept comments and respond to those comments as desired outside of the draft final SEIR, or B, continue to accept comments but not respond to any comments received outside of the public review period. Does that require an action, or is that just a given for us to, again, if we don't take any action tonight, can we as a board continue to accept comments by default, and then staff can choose to respond or not? I'm just trying to figure out.
That direction would best come from the board, not be left to staff to decide whether or not we're gonna respond to comments received after a certain date.
And if we go to the paragraph right before that, where it states, M1W can choose to respond to comments received after the public review period, but would not be legally required to do so. So that's sort of the tipping point on that one.
So if we did make that motion, it would be clear that we're not agreeing to respond, but we're leaving the option open. The 1A option. Right, thank you for the clarification.
So, in reference to, I'm sorry.
So two questions, one a fairly simple one. If we do anything to extend this, even by 6 minutes, we're going to experience this $5,000 renoticing cost.
Yes, that was my understanding, because we have to renotice that it has changed from the December 23rd, 5 o'clock deadline.
Now let me ask you a kind of tough hypothetical, tough in the sense of, I'm going to ask you to forecast. Let's suppose that Cal-Am's Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project, the DSEIR project, fails or is substantially delayed by whatever cause. And the backup now becomes a necessity in order to attempt to meet the CDO. On this schedule, if we do not delay, can we meet the CDO? That's part one of a two-part hypothetical question. Understand there would be construction issues, and we've seen delays in any large project, but give us your best estimate of it.
So based on my understanding of the procedures that we need to follow, in your hypothetical, if Cal-Am's DSEIR project were to falter, and we extended, and therefore didn't certify until, let's say, March. My opinion is, whether we certify in February or March in that circumstance is not going to impact the schedule. And here's why. The Coastal Commission isn't meeting until mid-March, so that is now the critical path of decision point. So whether we certify in February or certify in March would not delay this backup plan substantially. Having said that, the schedule that we've presented to everyone on the expansion is that if we worked continuously, we would be able to get this done by December 31st, 2021, meaning producing water. But we all know we're delayed from that regardless. Whether we extend or don't extend, that's delayed, so we will not be meeting that schedule. So we're not going to meet the CDO. But as I sit here, I don't see a compelling argument on a schedule perspective whether we certify in February or March. Did that answer your question, or am I
You
reading
would
it?
answer part one of my questions. So part two of my question, would an extension of this comment period have any potential impact on, again, in the hypothetical that the DSEIR project falters, and we have to do this backup project, would it have any impact on when that backup project would be producing water?
No, because the decision point of extension and the certification of the EIR, whether it be March or February, is, in my opinion, is not the critical path item on the schedule. The critical path item on the schedule is what occurs at Coastal Commission and subsequent to that. The many, many steps that would need to occur, but
In other
it
words,
is,
we wouldn't be actually starting this project until some trigger event, probably not until mid-March.
at the very earliest, and frankly, even then, if I get out my crystal ball, it's not then, it's after.
Sure, because there's other sure it's fish steps. Thank you.
Make a comment. I think Rob has made this comment, I've made it many times. The project's not gonna get off the ground until we get a water purchase agreement from Callahan. And that might not come for a long, long time. So that's the real key point that's gonna make this work. And then there's gonna be time for this work. Yes, sir.
Well, another key point to that, and that's actually what would come from the Water Resources Agency, is going to be the new waters decision. I mean, that is unknown, that's still not solid. And that, in fact, that's what the Water Resources Agency in both their letters was bulleting or highlighting to us, saying, hey, we need to comment on your draft EIR because we have questions on those source waters. And if we become the critical path item, that needs to be figured out. That's something that we need to evaluate in the supplemental draft EIR. I mean, I think it's foundational.
Paul, you met, I know Brent's here, so he'll address it, but you met with Water Resource Agency on Monday and discussed all this with them, but still after that, they still feel they need more time for this, they're still requesting.
Yes, in fact, we received another letter yesterday reinforcing that request for additional time. And yes, I did meet, I spoke in front of their board on Monday for a bit, answered a number of questions. And in reference to the source waters, if I can go to that, Brent and I have been talking about this for many, many months. And I think on some of it, it goes to an existing agreement and we know where the source waters are. We completely understand and agree that we have a difference in opinion on one of those sources and we need to work that out. And that's exactly what I mentioned to their board. So I think there's that understanding.
So that was my thing. I didn't realize there was a disagreement on source water until Brent approached our board. And that's the reason I thought it was so important that they had ample time to really analyze it and weigh in on it, was when I found out that there wasn't complete agreement on source water, which I thought there was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just one other rise to a question per se, but this project doesn't entirely depend on a water purchase agreement from Callahan. The reason I say that is phase one of Pure Monterey provides Marine Coast with 600 acre-feet of recycled water. But this agency is also on the hook for another 827 because Marine Coast is on the hook to provide that to the former Fort Ord. The 827 has to happen in expansion. So you may very well get the equivalent of a water purchase agreement from Marine Coast sooner rather than later on that. And if it appears that the Monterey Peninsula is disinterested in that water and the DSEIR project that Callahan is going forward on the Cemex property, you may get a larger water purchase agreement from Marine Coast for the balance, because we may need it to protect ourselves. So that could happen sooner rather than later.
Is that, you're absolutely right on that. It's just that the water purchase agreement will be with Marina Coast, and if we're to clear out the CDO, it would have to be a water purchase agreement with Callahan. And that's, so
Well, on the hypothetical, yeah.
Absolutely, but
If the DSEIR plan is being built,
but if it's not, no, but in the initial, through the chair, the initial hypothetical is that the DSEIR plan goes away, we're critical, and then Rob's response was, well, we need a water purchase agreement. I think that there would be a water purchase agreement, but if Marina Coast comes in and takes that, takes that water, then, we're short water. We're short 1,200 acre feet. 800 plus 4.
well, that depends on whether extension produces 2250 for the Peninsula or 2250 plus 827 for the coast. And I believe the latter is the final.
With more new source waters added on top.
So obviously there's a number of interrelated variables.
Yeah, totally, yeah, I know, I understand.
Pretty much all the source water comes from the coast part.
Thank you, Chair. These are very important topics. I agree with the water purchase agreement, the CDO, and all of that. It's very important. But in the effort of time and efficiency, we are focusing on the environmental impact report. We're not focusing on costs or other things, which are very important. I don't mean to dismiss them. But I think we should try and focus on environmental impacts so we can stay on board and not go elsewhere. Thank you.
Jason, but an important part of the feasibility in the environmental is the source waters. That is, I mean, it's critical as part of that. The source waters, and the environmental impacts from getting those source waters. So that is something that is evaluated in the draft EIR.
All right.
Question?
Oh, yeah.
I think we should have public comment.
Can I be heard?
Yes, go ahead.
So just in regards to the comment about there being some different point of views in regards to the source water, is there a source of water that would potentially be included that's not within the SEIR already? And the reason why I'm asking that, it doesn't make really a lot of sense, is if there's disagreement about something that will or may not be in it, but it's already covered, then my assumption is that we'll be okay to move forward with certifying the SEIR. If it gets taken away, I don't see how that could be a problem, unless it will be. So I guess that would be an additional question to my initial one.
The impacts based on the influence.
So Tyler, hopefully you can hear me, this is Paul, and I'm looking at Allison while we're talking. To my knowledge, there are no other source waters that we can analyze within the SEIR, to answer your first question. If I understood your second question, if there was a reduction in source waters for some reason, obviously there'd be less of an environmental impact, so it wouldn't be pursuant to this SEIR.
There'd be less water.
Correct. But
So,
Do you want me to elaborate on
Please.
okay, so one thing to keep in mind is that we're working under the California Environmental Quality Act in the draft SEIR, which means, and because of the way we've described this as modifications to a project, means that what we do is we look at what the differences are in environmental impacts between the conditions in 2015 when you certified the base project EIR to what the conditions are now, and what the impact would be of changing the project, essentially to increase the plant capacity, increase the injection amount. The source water components were assumed to be the same in terms of construction impacts and physical facilities for source waters. So that's one part of it in the answer. The other part is that in the base EIR that was done in 2015, all the analyses for water quality and hydrology, for surface waters, groundwaters, and ocean, were all looked at in terms of the worst case condition that could occur. So it was a maximum diversion of source waters from all of the original 2015 proposed project source water suite. That included things like Lake El Acero, and it included assuming that that Salinas Valley Reclamation Plant would be modified to provide winter tertiary water to agricultural irrigators. So, and then from that, an amended and restated water recycling agreement is critical to that, and that occurred after the base EIR. So it changed the rules about what Monterey One Water is allowed to do with source waters. And so this EIR tries to wrap that all up and describe that. So I guess I went beyond the question answer, but it is relatively complex, and I wanted to just make sure I pointed out the differences between 2015 and 2019 are addressed. Okay.
yeah, Ron, do you want to reference the 9 letters we received plus the additional 12 letters and 5 phone calls that they are?
Yes, and then received.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to read, Ron, do we need to read names to get in record, or how's that work?
Just, yeah, I think for the record, just very quickly, to note, Shai, you want to read it? You want me to? So anyway, we have letters, there's letters, and this might, letters received. If we received the letter, the board members have all seen it, you don't necessarily need to get up and speak again, necessarily. Tamara Harris, Stephanie Nisethra, Jay Reese at AOL.com, Timothy Sanders, Howard Foster, League of Women Voters, Mark Watson, Margaret Ann Copperdahl, Tammy Jennings, Brent Boogie, Tina Walsh, Barbara Moore, Renee Franken. Those are letters that have been received since the packet that originally went out with the board members. So the board members have all received those as well. In addition, the following people called up with comments in opposition and asked that their names be read out loud at the meeting to state their opposition. And this includes Nancy Selfridge, Kim Jennings, Stephanie etc., Carol Erickson, Mark Watson. And I believe 3 of those people wrote letters as well. So anyway, they also called. That's just for the record.
For the record, were all of those opposed to extension? I think I heard one name.
The 5 names that I mentioned at the end were all called in to oppose extension.
And what about the letters?
The letters you have in front of you.
I understand, and just for the record, I'm trying to.
They are opposed to extending the public review comment period.
All of them?
Except the one from
County
Red
Water
Boots.
Resources Agency?
Right.
Okay. Why did that in the record?
Okay. We'll take public comment for 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to read out 5 names out loud. If you can come to the podium, please. Melody Chrisblock, Mark Kelly, Phyllis Muir, Walt Noddy, and Beverly Bean.
Melody Chrislop, Public Water Now. I listened to the Monterey County Water Resources Agency discussion with Paul Schugle on Monday. It was clear that their request for an extension is based solely on agricultural concerns. That this is a county-wide agency who should be taking a broader view and recognizing that a delay in the SEIR is not in the Peninsula's interest. We need water, and the expansion is the fastest and surest way to get that water and lift the moratorium. And speaking of ag interests, I hope everyone here realizes that about 40% of the wastewater that comes into this plant comes from the Peninsula's wastewater, not ag, and feeds the CSIP program. But you don't hear the Peninsula arguing that ag can't have it, not a drop of it. It's troubling that again we're seeing ag interests pitted against the Peninsula's need for water. This is all about our dysfunctional county politics, which Callahan is using to their advantage. Troubling too is the fact that ag is asking for more water, but is not yet even committed to the additional CSIP water up to 4,400 acre feet that is available to them. The Pure Water Monterey Phase 1 discussions have been going on for more than 12 years. Who owns the water outside the Monterey 1 boundary is a legal question. How is extending the SEIR comment period going to solve that issue? By the way, Callahan certainly did not establish water rights in their EAR for their desal project. They still haven't done so. Is an SEIR the place to establish water rights? I doubt it. The Water Resources Agency seems quite clear on their objections. They appear ready to submit their comments. What does more time buy them? This is a clear and simple attempt to delay the process again.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Kelly, and Councilman Director Campbell, I would like to speak directly to your point. Let's stick to the EIR as opposed to other things. In the draft EIR, there are 2 scenarios shown for source water. One is a document that has been looked at for the last 5 years by I don't know how many people, so I'm not going to state it. The second is a document that was produced by another local agency as a staff report. Completely well-intended, I have absolutely no doubt, and accepted by that board as an informational item. Somehow it found its way into your draft EIR as an actual comparison against another water source. My point I'd like to make is the Department of Water Resources for the County of Monterey is made up of extraordinary professionals in the area of water supply. You can call it source water, whatever you want. The fact is, it's called water supply. And they have not had a real chance to look at this. I don't think any of us doubt what they were doing in November when we were all drowning. That agency was in over the top of its head. And so what I would like to offer to you is at their request to the end of the month to take a critical, if I would call it peer review, only in the sense that these are actual true professionals in water supply and quality, looking at a draft EIR which contains 2 scenarios, one of which has, other than a casual basis, has not been reviewed at all. Is both a professional thing to do and it's the appropriate thing to do given how much we have at stake in this community. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Phyllis Muir. I've been working on water issues for 40 years. I was a member of this board as the City of Salinas representative when I was a council member holding the seat now held by Gloria. I was a member of the County Water Resources Agency Board of Directors. So I've been doing this for a long time, and 1 month delay versus 40 years of trying to solve this problem seems quite reasonable to me. The County Water Resources Agency has expressed its interest. They are a key player. And one of the other issues that is going on in this county is a new state mandate that the Salinas Valley has to have a groundwater sustainability plan. CSIP is a key part of their proposed plan. To the extent that there may be an impact on CSIP, both in quantity, quality, and the extent of delivery time, I think that 1 month to allow county individuals to more fully review this environmental impact report is not too much to ask. I also think it's very telling that your own general manager has said this 1 month delay is not going to impact the time that water will be delivered. So there really is no rationale for not giving the 1 month delay. There is every rationale and reason as we all try to cooperate with one another to actually do it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Walt Nutley, Carmel resident. The request to extend the SEIR through January of 2020 is another attempt of DeLapa to supersede ratepayer interest and to allow the information the California Coastal Commission will need to make the final desalination permit decision in March of 2020. Monterey One Water's primary goals are to protect the environment, to provide the most efficient and innovative utilization of wastewater for customers. It is more likely that starting the expansion project as soon as possible will meet all constraints on overdrawing area water resources before the desalination plant, because of the legal, justice, and environmental problems. Delaying this review further is clearly a politically motivated strategy to obstruct final authorization of the Pure Monterey expansion. Please deny this extension. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beverly Bean, Phil Wellman, Brett Buki, John Tilley.
Good afternoon. I'm Beverly Bean. I came here to speak for the League of Women Voters, but I will not read the whole letter since I hope you have read. I will highlight what I feel are the important things. The League of Women Voters of Monterey County urges you to deny the 4 requests for an extension of the comment period. The draft SEIR is based on one already approved by Monterey County Water Resources Agency for Pure Water Monterey Phase 1. There are no conflicts or problems with any section of the DSEIR cited in the extension requests. The intent of the requests for extending the comment period is to delay further progress. Monterey One Water is a public agency which is supposed to operate with transparency and in the public interest. The California Coastal Commission expects to have the SEIR when it considers the Pure Water Monterey expansion as a potential option at its next meeting. Delaying the SEIR serves the interests of CalAm, the private for-profit corporation, and its supporters. The League supports desalination as a long-range water planning option, but only after all efforts for a low-impact project are exhausted. Time is of the essence in meeting the CDO, and the Pure Water expansion will produce water sooner and with much lower cost than the proposed desal. Please do not extend this deadline.
Thank you.
Hi there, Phil Wellman, member of LandWatch. I'm speaking for Michael DeLapa today, the executive director who couldn't be here. Dear Mr. Shudo, LandWatch opposes the request for the extension of the public review period for the public water Monterey expansion draft SEIR. The public review period, November 7th to December 23rd, 2019 is ample. This is a subsequent EIR for a previously approved project that has already undergone a full EIR process. The extension requests are without substantive foundation. The requests appear to be intended only to deny the California Coastal Commission the benefit of the final SEIR for the Pure Water Monterey expansion because Coastal Commission staff have recommended it as an alternative to CalAm's desalination project. SECRA provides that the public review period for a draft EIR not be longer than 60 days, except under unusual circumstances. CalAm is requesting an extension to January 31st, 2020, 95 days after the November 7th, 2019 commencement of the public review period. Your agency should not put itself in the service of CalAm and attempt to delay the SEIR and handicap the Coastal Commission. We note your mission and vision focuses on efficient, innovative utilization of water and water recycling. Efficient means timely. Unnecessary, politically motivated delay isn't efficient. Favoring their request for a delay is costly and in conflict with the public's interest for expeditious decision-making. The request for an extension should be denied. Regards, Michael DeLapa. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Stefani, board members, Brent Buki, General Manager from Monterey County Water Resource Agency. So all of you have the letter, the second letter that we sent, and I'll just reiterate what Paul said, that he and I have worked together for months on this, and my staff has worked with Paul's staff. And when I sit here and listen to the comments, what I really need to reiterate to everyone is this has nothing to do with CalAm. So when you look up, is this laser work? When you look up at that map there, and you see that pond on the right-hand side, and then you come back to the filters in the chlorine contact basin, the stakeholders of Monterey County Water Resource Agency pay for all the capital costs on that. We pay for all the operations maintenance. That is Salinas Valley Water Project. And with that commitment with that purchase came a commitment for water. And so when you open up the supplemental draft EIR, it references that water to agriculture is going to be reduced. That is what I'm looking at. My stakeholders not only paid for the SVRP, they paid for the CSIP project. And back then it was like $75 million to do a project like that. Now it's well over $100 million. And so in order for myself and my staff to do due diligence to ensure that what Paul and his staff have identified is correct takes time. And so we've had many meetings. We continue to work out the details. We've been partners on this for over 20 years and we'll continue to be partners. We're not trying to stop anything. We're just looking for an ample opportunity to comment on the EIR. Thank you.
Sir.
Marlene Fisher, Mark Gonzalez, Anna Thompson, Jan Turner.
Hi, my name is John Tilley. Thank you, Chair, board members. I'm with the Coalition of Peninsula Businesses. I'm neither a KLM supporter or a KLM opponent. I'm with the Coalition of Peninsula Businesses, more concerned about having a water supply project that is good for our environment, that is good for our region, and provides sufficient sustainable water for many, many years to come, starting as soon as possible. I think the words that were just spoken by the general manager really say it all, and that is that this is not about CalAm, this is not about politics, this is really just about getting it right. And a very important partner in this process, the Water Resource Agency, has asked for a very short period of time so they can get it right. I would encourage you to grant that short extension for that very reason, so that your work is done the best it can be, that your partners are deeply involved in this, and that the goal here is to build a water project that works regardless of politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Marlene Fisher from Carmel Valley. I want to congratulate all of you as the governing board of this cutting-edge recycling plant. You have overseen a near miracle of bringing the first new water to this area. Thank you. Be very proud, and please allow more of it to happen as soon as possible under the capable direction of Mr. Paul Shudo and his staff, as soon as possible. A vote to delay the SEIR would be clearly seen as assisting CalAm in an obvious delaying tactic aimed at denying the Coastal Commission the opportunity at their next meeting to consider the extended project as an additional viable water source for the peninsula. What folly that would be. How obvious. Wouldn't the commissioners see right through it? Why engage in it? Some folks have written to you and others are speaking today asking for the SEIR to be delayed. Many of them, their reasons are really lame. And they probably have other reasons for doing so. They have possibly unspoken financial benefits relating to their ties with CalAm. Please deny them. The majority of people in this area are depending on you to increase the water supply as soon as possible, so please, no delays. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Gonzalez. I'm chairman of the Monterey County Water Resources Agency. And there has been a couple letters that have been forwarded to you, so I'm not going to reiterate anything, but the board asked me to come and ask you guys if you would consider the extension, and we surely would appreciate it. And also, we do appreciate Paul. He did come out and address the board. He answered a lot of the questions, but our board still had questions, and we just need staff to give a little bit more time to figure things out. But your consideration in this would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Thompson, Carmel. Please do not extend the comment deadline for the Pure Water Monterey expansion DSEIR. There is no substantive reason, conflict, or problem that warrants extending the public comment deadline beyond December 23rd. CalAm, regardless whether CalAm's DeSEIR project is approved or not, it is in everyone's best interest to recycle all available wastewater as soon as possible. The projected 2,250 acre-feet of additional water that the Pure Water Monterey expansion will provide not only will cost a fraction of what the same amount of water will cost if delivered through CalAm's DeSEIR plant, it will provide drought reserve, reduce current discharge to the bay, produce much less CO2 per year, consume less energy per year, and assure us the ability to meet the CDO deadline and lift the moratorium and restriction on building permits. It is my belief that by recycling all available wastewater, banking of rainwater runoff, and adoption of aggressive water conservation practices, we can achieve a sustainable, environmentally friendly, and most affordable water supply system. Water is too valuable to waste after a single use. Do not allow this not to happen, please. The Coastal Commission deserves to have the information that it is feasible to go ahead and proceed with the pure water extension. Thank you very much for your understanding.
Susan Scavone, Bruce Delgado, Karen Anderson.
Dan Turner, Monterey. Let's cut right to the chase. Unless one of you has had an epiphany since the last board meeting, you guys are going to approve this resolution. So I'd like to talk about what might motivate you to vote for Cal-Am and to screw us, the regular working people, or Cal-Am's ratepayers. I can think of two motives. The first one would be what I call ideological. I've met people who would rather pay more for water from a corporation than less for water from a public agency. And that's what I would call an ideological preference to the corporate model over the public model. These folks often see anything public as socialism, and they hate socialism. This would be my first guess as to what motivates Mr. Phillips and Galliotti. I don't know anything about Mrs. De La Rosa's politics, but I do know she's been on the Salinas City Council for 26 years, since 1993. If she is not a rock-ribbed reactionary like Mr. Phillips, her motivation might be the second thing that came to mind, namely our legalized form of political bribery that we call campaign contributions, which have corrupted our political system from top to bottom. Politicians need this money because it is impossible to win an election without a lot of money to pay for advertising on radio, TV, and the internet. Supposedly, there's no quid pro quo, no payback expected by the wealthy or their corporations for the money they give to politicians. But everyone knows that there is. Don Chapin has organized business PACs up and down the Salinas Valley to support pro-business candidates for Salinas Valley City Council, for 3 supervisorial seats on the east side of the county, and other elected offices. Not only will any sitting politician not get any money from him in the future if he or she does not vote the way Don wants him or her to vote, but he or she can also expect to face a very well-funded opponent at their next election if they double-cross him. And Mr. Chapin wants you to vote for Cal-Am. Maybe that's what motivated Mrs. De La Rosa and some others in this board who voted against it. If you can think of any other reasons to side with Cal-Am and against us aside from those two, I'd like to hear them. And remember, the reasons you've given so far about the unreliability of source water have been demolished many times over. So I mean something other than that. I'll be amazed if any of you will have the courage or integrity to contact me, but if you do, Mr. Shiru has my email.
Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome.
Ma'am, just one second. Please address the board through the chair. Okay, and don't point towards board members. That's totally unethical. Okay, and we're not going to allow that in this board.
I quite understand.
So if you want to address this board again, remember that. Okay, okay, up next.
I'll be the board next time.
Susan Schiavone, thank you for letting me speak. I don't believe there's any legitimate reason to extend the deadline for the SEIR. Holidays are not a legitimate reason, nor is the issue of analyzing source waters. The time period provided was very adequate to investigate any issues and for those who care to set aside the time. If those involved wanted to comment, there has been plenty of time, including a public hearing. The only reason to extend the deadline is yet another attempt to subvert the public process for this project in order to delay the final decision with the hope of depriving the Coastal Commission consideration of the project as an alternative to the desalination plant. Of those requesting the extension, all are vested in benefiting from the desal plant. I urge the board to stay on track with this public process and allow the facts to speak for themselves in regard to the SEIR. This SEIR is simply an extension of the original EIR, and it's not rocket science to figure it out. Please do not grant the extension for public comment. As pointed out earlier, you can simply receive and consider additional comments from agencies without changing the extension. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Board. My name is Bruce Delgado, representing the City of Marina. I apologize for my down dress, but hopefully you guys know in a few weeks. I wanted to congratulate you because congratulations are in order for coming online in January of next year with Pure Water Monterey. As mentioned before, that's a huge milestone for everyone in our county. Cutting to the punchline, most of the public and our local water agencies such as Marina Coast Water District and Monterey Peninsula Water Management District want to be as ready as possible with a backup plan called the expansion of Pure Water Monterey, because the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project, as you know, faces technological, legal, permitting, and other obstacles which are going to require the need for them to ask for an extension of the CDO. And I might have it wrong, but what I understand today is that the source water alternatives and the portfolio options of different combinations of those source waters are covered within your original EIR and your supplemental EIR, even before your final portfolio is to be consummated, which may be many months. And then my question to you and staff is, if the outstanding conflicts can be identified within the worst case scenario analysis sideboards that we expect to be included in your final EIR, then I don't understand why you would need a deadline. You often have comments that need to be addressed in the final without knowing the crystal ball, but ensuring that you're within the sideboards of whatever that crystal ball wherever that crystal ball may end up being. So if your SEIR can cover the sideboards of your outstanding disagreements, so that the worst case scenarios could cover wherever those agreements go, then I would hope that you don't delay this process. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sylvia Shai, Eric Tynan, William Buskin.
Thank you for this chance to speak to you. I'm Karen Anderson, and I just want to say that as a Monterey LandWater ratepayer, I'm here today to ask that any extension of the December 23rd comment deadline on the Pure Water Monterey expansion, SEIR, be denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Sylvia Shi. I'm from Seaside. I'm here to thank you for delivering the first drop of new water. But I'm also here to ask you not to extend the public comment, because 45 days is plenty. You have already done your full EIR. This is a supplemental. You don't want to add more administrative work to you. Now, also, the key point is this. The agency, the Monterey County Water Resource Agency, has already laid out all the things to be considered. All the key comments have been made. You already have the staff to work with it. So don't delay, don't just drag on with another process of extending the comment. Make your decision stick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bill Boseman, or William A. Boseman. I'm from Pacific Grove. I've worked on land issues as an elected and appointed official in a bunch of agencies over the years. And so I'm going to kind of sum up what I've heard today from the staff. One was that under the original base EIR, all sources were already considered, and maximum impacts or worst case scenarios were considered. The impact of not delaying, of just moving forward and possibly having a conflict and some source water being withheld would actually minimize the environmental impact. And so what's the point in delaying? Delaying and getting more securing an additional source actually increases the environmental impact. So what's the point? There isn't any. Not for public benefit, not for reducing environmental impact. It's a silly excuse, so please deny.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Chair, Fund, members of the board. Eric Tynan with the Castro Community Services District. Would like to thank this board and Water Resources for the Castro Seawater Intrusion Project. It's named because it's right there at Castroville, where we're getting seawater intrusion big time. Within 2,000 feet of all the wells. I will say that
in spite of the fact that you've got a top rate manager with a highly qualified staff that's got all kinds of awards, they're still having trouble just getting the pure water off the ground. I mean, they're doing the best they can, but there are a lot of complications. The people who are advocating for the expansion, it's not like this has been running for 4 or 5 years and you've got a track record and now you want to expand it. You haven't got a drop yet. And you're betting on all this? I don't see how delaying the EIR has anything but positive side. Water resources is a critical member of this solution. And as far as the coastal commission goes, I think they're very smart. I think they don't need the EIR to make or break their decisions. They're gonna do it, they're not gonna do it based on that. But you guys did a fantastic job. I just continue doing what you're doing. At the end of the day, you guys are gonna be responsible for the decisions you make here, not the people who are coming around beating up on you. And quite frankly, I've never wanted to be a public official. I have to reapply for my job every 4 years and have people call you names and insult you. It's not fair, and I would never want to be a public official. Good luck.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Comments from the board?
I'll certainly answer any questions that you may have, and Allison is here if you need some more detail.
I do want to start with a question, and if I may, just move right into comments. Just a quick question. So has anyone identified any technical specific issues with notice and release of the DSEIR? Is there any truly legal reason why we should extend this?
Not to my knowledge, no. We, once we started receiving the letters, we did consult with our secret counsel just to make sure, and Mr. Wellington as well as our consultants, and there was no technical reason to do it, to extend. So certainly, had there been a technical reason, that would be under my auspices, and I would have not had to bother all of you. But it is a policy decision from what we are understanding, so hence the reason we are having this meeting today.
I have one question. I was going to go into comments, but if you'd like to do questions first.
I should vote. Isn't it usual with a public agency when an extension is requested, at least in my experience, isn't it almost automatically granted? With a public agency and someone's requesting an extension?
Yeah. I don't know if I've been involved in one where another public entity has requested an extension, so I think maybe that's Allison that one also. Rob?
That's a good question, John. I think that I normally, to the extent, it really depends upon the circumstances of the facts. Usually there's a basis for the request for an extension, and when there's a basis for it, I would say that usually it's granted.
From a county standpoint, it just seems like maybe someone expressing a reason, but we almost always grant it.
Yeah. The dispute here is whether there's the reasons.
All right,
for it.
Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll repeat a few things I heard that from the draft SEIR. It's basically the worst case scenario of water sources. And if we reduce the water sources, I think it just makes common sense. We reduce the actual environmental impact. So I think most of these things are included. What strikes me as interesting here is I don't think this is very new information. I think we've been discussing expanding the possibility of expanding the recycled water project for about a year now plus. So with the Water Resources Agency coming to us and suddenly saying, wait a minute, where's the water coming from? I'm not sure where they've been on this in the last year. I don't think this is new information. I just suspect if anybody understands water sources, it would be the from the county, from the valley, it would be the Monterey Water Resources Agency. So they, in some sense, would be the best to answer their own questions. But they have time, and they have had time to allow the normal DSEIR process to work. We'll open it up to public comment. They have staff. None of these dates were a surprise. And as was also mentioned, and I noted, is they seem to be aware of the issues already that they have concerns with. So they should be ready to write the comments tonight. That's the thing. And then just like anyone else, they write comments as the lead agency once we close the comment period, or even before we start working on the responses to those comments. And so we're obligated to respond to the comments. We're not dodging this issue. And if what they do bring up is a real issue, then we're going to have to address it. And as we address it, they will get their answers. If they're not satisfied, unfortunately, once we if we go ahead and certify and approve the project, then there's potential for litigation. I understand that. But we still have this process. We haven't even been given a chance to answer their direct questions, which they should have given us or be ready to give us. So, either way, I think they know the issues. I have I feel like our obligation to our ratepayers and who have paid for this is to continue down the path, the established path, and not extend the comment period on the DSEIR.
Chai, a suggestion for Chai, if you've got reliable comms with him on your cell phone, put him on speaker on the mic.
Tyler?
I'm here.
My understanding is the review period, at the end of the review period doesn't mean that the door is closed, you cannot comment. Reviews can still go on. The idea is to make sure that there's ample time that anybody out in public has an opportunity to take a look at the document. I don't think it's necessarily prudent for us to spend more money to reissue notifications, to extend the time frame, because the door isn't closed. The discussions can still go on, and yeah, WRA should have an idea of what their concerns are. Those conversations can still continue. It doesn't mean that everything stops on the 23rd.
So question, I'm not sure whether this is for Rob or our consultant, but we've heard at least one assertion from the public today about what CEQA says about the length of comment periods for supplemental EIRs. So what, in fact, does CEQA say about the length of comment periods for supplemental EIRs?
The minimum is actually 30 days. As soon as there's any kind of state agency that is a responsible or trustee agency, you're required to have that 45-day, calendar day review period. It's listed as a minimum requirement, so there's nothing that precludes you from having a 2-year period if you choose as a policy. However, keep in mind that the objectives of the project included that this project was going to be pursued as a backup in order to meet the cease and desist order. And so that's the reason why I think it became more of an issue in this case. If there was no schedule for implementation that was in the objectives, it probably wouldn't have been, not even considered it. We would have granted it, because you typically want, under CEQA, to provide the maximum amount of public involvement as you can.
So the reason I asked the question is I heard at least one assertion that there was a maximum 60-day.
I don't know that there is a maximum. Rob, do you know? I don't know off the top of my head, but I can check on that for you.
Sounds fairly important, because if there is a maximum and we go beyond it, and this body goes beyond it, then we just handed somebody an ability to challenge the whole process.
So I think in reference to that, that was the letter from LandWatch that states, CEQA provides that the public review period for a draft EIR not be longer than 60 days, except under unusual circumstances. CEQA guidelines section 15105A.
Right, and so the unusual circumstances could be a gray area that is subject to interpretation.
Is it 60 or 45? That's 60.
It says that, that's no, they're quoting that it's no longer than 60 days except under unusual circumstances.
For a draft. Thank you, understand.
Yeah, I've actually been reading a number of letters from LandWatch. We're in a dispute with them over a housing element, and one characteristic of a LandWatch letter is that it's very declarative. The 105 actually states that a lead agency shall have a public review period of no less than 30 days. That's a mandate. But then have the discretion, or it shouldn't be 60 days unless there's unusual circumstances, and that's the discretion. And so one is mandated, one is discretion, and they leave that to us. But the other point, which is and this is one that I'm very familiar with actually, is it the consultation with a public agency, which is actually, if you read that same statute or that same section and then you read up, is 15086, which requires consultation with any trustee agency or trustee agency or a public agency that has jurisdiction over resources that are connected to your project. You must receive comments from them. And then section 087, just below that, says you must receive that within the comment period. So while it's true that CEQA Council says we are not mandated by law, because all of these things are within that discretion of the lead agency, to your point, we would absolutely be open to CEQA challenge if we did not follow every single one of those. It's a house of cards that any good CEQA attorney that would be opposing us would just drive a truck right through it. So it's not just 105, it's 086 in combination with 87. That's why they give us the discretion. The state writes it that way so that the lead agency can then do that.
I just wanted to ask council, because my main concern is that if we don't extend the period, are we somehow, is it potentially imperiling the CEQA process here?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
Our CEQA council's been looking at this every day. She's followed this whole process. If we had a problem with not extending it, she would have told us.
Okay.
She's she's one of the best CEQA attorneys in the state of California and has represented this agency for a long time. So with regard to what the information that Paul indicated, that she felt that was within our discretion it's within the board's discretion to consider whether it wants to grant an extension or not.
So it's a discretionary.
Yes.
Well,
and that's in council.
So it's a discretionary opinion. It's something the board has discretion to do,
right.
And it's not going to be
There's
not going to be a 1094 on it.
Not less than 30 days and not more than 60 days. So you got that's the framework.
And if they file an administrative action, it's not going to imperil the CEQA process.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, let me back up from that. Someone, that anyone can file any kind of lawsuit, and sometimes some of the worst lawsuits that get filed are CEQA lawsuits that are filed without foundation. So that would foul things up, I'd have to say.
You would foul things up, but it would be really without merit.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm one of those that push to bring this on, I would support a motion to expand it. I'm mostly concerned about the request from the Water Resource Agency, and that came to light to me as a member of the Board of Supervisors when Brent Buki brought it before us and informed us that there was a difference of opinion about source water, and that was the first time I've heard anything about that. And that Paul Schrudo is a very experienced guy, but Mr. Buki's been around here for a long time. He's got the experience of water, and so that's when our board said, look, we really have to get to the bottom of this, and our board supported getting more time in the expansion that we thought we needed. And to me, we have to get as much facts and independent facts, especially from the Water Resource Agency. That's our partner agency that is supplying the source water. And I know there's a lot of push on the Salinas Valley to recycle their water, the farmers are doing. The GSA is looking at it. The CSIP is looking about the expansion. So I have a real concern if we move forward too quickly without having substantial factual basis for and making sure we have our source water. I'm worried about what the repercussions is. I think if we move forward and we don't satisfy it to everybody's determination, we're looking at a liability coming up. I'm really concerned that if we move forward and build this plant and find out we don't have an adequate source water, that we end up, this agency looks real bad. And I think we're looking at some real liability if we do that. So I think it's important that we get as much facts as we can, and we have to make sure that we're working in conjunction with Water Resource Agency. And, you know, I think it's unfortunate it kind of got tangled in with this thing that we've been dealing with the recycled water, but with the DSEIR and the Coastal Commission. And if it's necessary, I'm sure Cal-Am's not going to like this, but I mean, we have to make the determination we have to make. And if someone has to push to continue the Coastal Commission, so be it. But I mean, we shouldn't be pushed to make a decision without the full factual understanding until we get all the facts that we need. So I'm concerned if we try to move too fast, we're going to end up tangled up with litigation, and that's going to slow it down even more. That's my view.
So personally, I've got to say, personal attacks on board members is inexcusable. With an extension, I've heard here that from staff that it doesn't impair the CEQA process. And I've heard that for some reason that someone believes that we're doing it to withhold information from the Coastal Commission. That's just not true. I've heard from staff that there's no harm in extending the public comment because the Coastal Commission doesn't meet until March. And that we can, you know, look at extending and certifying in February since they don't meet in March. And with a request of the Water Resource Agency, for whatever reason that they need to look at the source waters more, I feel that since it is a public agency, that we should probably grant them the extension as board members and get all the facts. So, you know me for my fairness and honesty, and that's what I'm here today.
And my comments are this too. I'm going to echo Judge Phillips, Supervisor Phillips, and I think it's important that we get the facts, especially about any type of water, and we're talking about source water. So I am going to support to extend the process, and I just want to make it clear that I've been in the city council for 20 years, not 26. I did lose an election. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see an issue. I don't think that we're rushing it. I think that things are moving along as everybody expected. It's interesting that we have members of the public that aren't getting paid to provide their feedback and input, spend their personal time. If there's individuals that are paid by agencies that are asking for additional time when there seems to have been enough time. So I'm leaning more towards not allowing more time, but just interested, I'm not sure if everybody got to speak yet, interested in what others have to say.
What do you say?
Oh, he said he doesn't know if everyone has spoken yet, and he's interested in hearing what anyone else has to say.
Yeah. Well, my take on this is Water Resources is a partner. You know, I do have the source water. They have some concerns. I'd rather deal with them now than later. And without giving them an extension, we might upset them. And it might be a little easier to negotiate with them now than if they're pushed and upset.
I think part of my concern too is that there's this point being made about there's just this discrepancy or this difference in opinion of the source water when that's not has nothing to do with the decision that we're making today. Unless I again miss something, but I keep hearing that point being argued and it seems moot because it's irrelevant towards the conversation.
So make a motion.
I'll do it. I'll make a motion that we extend the review period at the request, or for the period that the Water Resource Agency is asking for. I believe that's 3. What is that?
What's the specific date?
No, the 2. That's 2. Extend it to January 31st, 2020, 5 p.m.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Discussion from the board. Jason first, and then we'll come back to Tom.
On the second, I just want to reiterate that if when the DSEIR is, the comment period is closed, regardless, we still have several steps before any litigious action could be taken on this decision. We would need to wait for the comments to be addressed. We would need to certify the EIR, and if we still had these questions, we could reconsider this. And then, to top it off, we then have to approve the project. And there's talk about that we might look bad if we start building a plant and don't have the water. Well, I hope we don't approve the project without knowing there's the water. So that ability to back off is still out there. We're not eliminating that. So that's why I will not support this motion.
So I too will not support this motion. However, that leads to a potential problem from a parliamentary perspective. If I vote no, and I'm on the losing side of this motion, under Robert's Rules of Order, that removes any possibility of me asking for a reconsideration under any sort of circumstance. So before we vote, I am going to, and I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to offer a substitute motion. The substitute motion will be to extend the EIR to the 60th day as indicated by the spirit of SEQA. And I believe that's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of January 7th. So if anyone would care to second my substitute motion, as distasteful as it is to me.
January 6th, but.
Okay, January 6th. They're counting.
January 6th.
So January 6th, 5 o'clock.
January 6th, 5 o'clock.
It needs a second. It dies for lack of a second if there's no second.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second on the floor. We need to take it. Any other comments from the board? Take a public comment?
No.
Already done it. We've already got comments. Yeah, right. Is that good enough? Yep. Okay. So we can call for the question. You want to do a roll call? All right.
Veranda,
No.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Yes.
Delray Oaks,
Yes.
Marina,
No.
Monterey,
No.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas,
Yes.
Sand City,
Yes.
Seaside.
No.
Motion carries.
Wait,
6.
you better recount it, I counted it 5 to 5.
I counted 5 to 5 also.
I have the people who voted no as Veranda, Marina Coast,
No.
Monterey,
Oh, maybe it's
Seaside.
It's 5-5.
6-4. 6-4. 6-4.
6-4 then, okay, all right.
That's one of us.
Very much.
Short extension or long?
We've got staff reports and we've got some good news, some excellent news to report.
So there's 2 bits of information, one on one is, as you all know, we received a grant through the Bureau of Reclamation, a Title 16 wind grant. Evidently, there's not much going on in Washington right now. So, so the House and the Senate did approve a spending bill recently, which included our $4.1 million grant. So staff is actively contacting Bureau saying, how can we get that money, when can we get it? So that's frankly a huge thing for this project.
Mike just left.
Yeah, he's trying to get that money, thank you. Second thing is our plant, which you have all visited, started the 14-day performance test on Monday. So we have actually been operating a little longer than that. And we're in the midst of doing our UV challenge test for the Division of Drinking Water. So that 14-day challenge test should be done by the 28th of this month, if I'm not mistaken. We'll hear from the Division of Drinking Water, and then we'll be able to start putting it into the ground in January, hopefully. We're obviously reliant on the time the lab takes to do some tests and Division of Drinking Water has to respond, but both good bits of news thus far.
Good news.
Merry Christmas to all.
Happy holidays.